Okay guys, what I want to do today is first look at in my Windows Azure, see what kind of resources do I have here, and after that create a resource group, application server, SQL database server, and all this done through Visual Studio. Notice that I'm not gonna create them here in the Azure portal azure.com. I'm gonna create this all through the Visual Studio, and I'm gonna organize everything in one resource group, because after that I want to be able easily to remove the database server which I have created, and the database and the application services. So everything what I'm gonna create now in the Visual Studio is gonna be easily removed. And also I'm gonna use the default ASP.NET application, which I'm gonna deploy to this new app service and to the SQL database. Okay, let's get started. So I want to create all these things directly in the Visual Studio. I'm gonna say new project, make sure that I enter my credentials for Windows Azure, and we'll start doing it. ASP.NET Web Application. I'm gonna call this Visual Studio Created Web App. Okay. No, I don't want to use this account. I want to use another account. I will re-enter my credentials. Okay. And after that, we'll continue. Okay. Sign in. And soon I will be in, I believe. Here we go. Visual Studio Created Web App. Actually, what else? Created Web App. Created Web App. Okay, let's leave it as it is right now. I was thinking for more descriptive name, but that's also okay. Okay, I'm gonna say create this application. I'm gonna choose ASP.NET MVC application, ASP.NET 4.5.2 template. I'm not gonna change the authentication. I wanna have registration and login. Host in the cloud, app service. I wanna use app service. I'm not gonna create virtual machine 1 or 2. I'm gonna use app service. I'm gonna say OK, and now VS created web app 2016. This is the name which the web application will be known. Here, app services. I'll get a new app service with this long name. I'll create a database which is similar to this one. Let me show the databases just to say see the differences. On a different server. I'm gonna even create a different SQL server. Okay. Free trial, blah 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 blah. Okay, I'm gonna use my free trial as much as possible. So let me see now. Resource group. I'm gonna create a new resource group, which I'm gonna call VS Created App. Okay. Free trial. Services. I cannot click here on the services. This is something that bothers me. App service plan is required. App service plan. Okay, let's say new. It's app service plan, location South Central US. Now I'm gonna use again Western Europe. I want to create a database server and a database as well during the creation of the application itself. Wow, okay. So I'm gonna say okay, services, resource. Now I can choose services, select any additional Azure resources your app will need. SQL database, scalable and managed database server for modern business class, SQL database. Resource, you have selected and configured. VS created web app. This is the app plan. I'm gonna create a service server. Before was looking differently. VS create web app service plan, which is created services. Okay, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna add a database. Here we go. SQL Server. Database name is clear. Administrator username, administrator password. So those are the changes which have been made actually. Before it was looking differently. SQL Server. I want a new SQL Server. Server name. Administrator username. I'm gonna call it admin. Password 7up. Again, password 7up. Why I'm choosing this complicated password? Because I'm afraid that they are not gonna accept the very simple password like ABC123 or simply the word password. So that's why I'm changing it a little bit. In any case, I'm gonna remove it immediately after this tutorial is created. Okay, so this is the new server which is gonna be created. Okay, so I still wanna make a screenshots and save it in the proper place. Okay, I don't know why. 543 server creation. Okay, I'm gonna say okay. Admin password, database name. This is the database name. Again, I'm gonna take a screenshot just for any case. Let me open a notepad and save it because it's quite long. The server is the same with the name DB server. In any case, it's gonna be used in my application. DB server, admin password 7, and this symbol. So the database server is gonna be created. I'm gonna say okay. Resources you have selected and configured. We have already VS Visual Studio created web app 2016 plan, server and the database on the same server. Everything I hope is gonna be on the West Europe. Hosting, free trial resource group, services, app services. Let me configure the services. West Europe. Yeah, the interface looks differently, slightly differently than before. So that's why I'm checking again. Double check. Cancel that. And the database which is gonna be created. So have screenshots of that as well. Cancel admin. Okay, so now I'm ready to create this application. We'll see all these newly created things. Database, now this database is gonna show up here. This database is gonna show up in Windows Azure. We will have this app service plan created for us. Let's see how that looks. Create, and we will wait. And voila, my application has been created. Oh, template deployment failed. Deployment operation status failed. Subscription, resource group, admin is not a valid login name in this version of SQL Server. Oh, wow. I made a mistake. Resource group. Okay. That's not a very good news. Stupid me to choose admin as a username for the DB server. Adding application insights to project, adding package Microsoft application. We'll see now. Adding application insights to the project. Okay, so in other words, failure is a great way of learning. Don't use admin. Create web app. Let me check and make sure that the application works. On my local machine, Control F5, just to make sure that everything works. And after that, I will show the publish, and I actually will try to publish the application after we look at the Azure and the services which have been created there. Okay, we're waiting now for the application to start. Yeah, the application is up and running and everything looks fine. I can register, I can log in. Probably I will register. And if we want to see the application data, we should choose show all files, and we'll see the local database where the application data will be stored. Actually, probably this file should be created. Let me look at the web config, maybe because this error is not gonna be created. No, it should be created. ASP.NET MDF file, initial catalog. Okay, so app data. Let me refresh. No, we still don't have this this local database file. So let's register and see if this shows up. Too much magic is going on here. Okay, at least here I can use admin example and the password is gonna be the same, so it's easy to remember. Here I'm almost certain that if I use a simple password like abc123 or simply password, is not gonna be accepted. Register. No, I don't want you to remember this. It's using Firefox simply because the last browser I was using to see my application running was Firefox, otherwise I would prefer Chrome. And voila, I'm in contact, about, and I can log off. Okay, where these data actually have been saved? Here it is. The file just have been created. As you saw before, the local database file didn't exist before my registration. So the magic happened behind the scene and the local database file was created. Okay, now let's try to deploy this application. I already get this error message telling me that the deployment failed simply because I have chosen a wrong database name. So I'm gonna do this again probably. Profile, I don't even have a profile, so I have to create a new profile. Here we go. Resource group, resource type, search, default, PhD uni, those are the resources. So I'm gonna do it again. I have chosen a wrong server name, username for the server, and that's why I have to do it again. I'm gonna close this application. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this entire solution, close solution, and I'm gonna remove this application from my file system. But before doing that, actually, let's start again. Visual Studio 2015. Okay, so we're gonna create right now again resource group. We're gonna create app services. We're gonna create a new SQL database. We're gonna create new SQL server in Western Europe. So let me show you again that we have some resource groups: contact manager, default, PHP, VS create, app free, trial. But in this VS created services, we don't have application, we don't have a service. Refresh just to make sure. I'm gonna remove this resource group entirely, so we'll learn something. Okay, let me try this way. Delete VS created web app. Delete it. Type the resource group name of, not easy though, VS created web app. VS created web app. I hope I typed correctly. Delete this entire group. Deleting the resource group. Refresh. All resources. I hope I didn't cause troubles. VS created, web app, all these things have been created, but not the database. And also, I don't see here app service created. No, there is no such thing. SQL databases. No SQL database has been created. Go back again to the resource groups and hopefully everything is removed. No, it's still there. delete probably is in progress, so I will leave it as it is, and I'm gonna create a new resource group using Visual Studio. The main thing is that I want to create a resource group, I want to create the services, I want to create the database server and the database itself entirely through Visual Studio. New project. This time I'm gonna call this Visual Studio create. Actually, this is not gonna be very different. Created by Visual Studio. Okay. This is what I'm gonna do now. Put a line here. Created by Visual Studio. I have to enter my credentials, I believe, because I restarted my studio, Visual Studio. Free trial, thanks God, I don't have to do that. I'm not gonna waste time. I'm gonna say OK, and we'll go through again the options. App service, no virtual machine, change authentication. We want this authentication. I want my application to be very simple and take advantage of all automation which Microsoft offers. Contact Manager 64. Let's see if this resource group is still offered. No, doesn't offer anymore. The resource group which I just removed, created by Visual Studio. This is my web app, so I'm gonna copy this. This is gonna be the URL. It's gonna be created by Visual Studio blah blah dot Azure websites.net. Okay, this is my web app name. Again, I'm gonna save this. Free trial app service plan. It offers me a name. Again, Western Europe. I clicked on this button before that, so I'm gonna put here 1, and now 552. Okay, don't make my mistakes. So, free trial created by Visual Studio Resource Group. All the database server, the database and web app name will be change type API IP, web app, mobile app. Okay, this is exactly what I want. Web app. Services, let's look at the services. Let's create a server now. SQL Server. Here. Now I'm gonna create a new server. I'm not gonna use existing one. Of course, after that I'm gonna drop it. I'm gonna remove it. Okay, so just have to remember that administrator username shouldn't be admin. Okay, administrator username, I'm gonna call it created by Visual Studio admin. For the database, the password is gonna be a password 7up again, password 7up again. Take a screenshot of that. I don't want to lose it. Don't lose it, reuse it. Okay, so the database server is gonna be created. Now, this is the name of the database. Administrator username, administrator password. I hope I will succeed. Since yesterday I haven't been able to create entirely account through Visual Studio, which I have done many times before, but before the interface was a little bit different. This username and database name and database server were on the same page, and somehow to me it was easier. Okay, so let's check again. Resources created by Visual Studio plan, app service plan, created by Visual Studio 2016 DB server. Let's check again. It's on the Western Europe. It's gonna be created in the Western Europe. I don't have to even remember anything. Cancel. Let's see the database server. Administrator for the database server. Administrator username again. Okay, let me take screenshots of that. I think I did, but just for any case. I may make a blog post about that because the interface right now looks differently. I don't know, maybe it's easier, maybe not. I don't know. But I'm ready with that, and I'm gonna say create. And this time I'm gonna leave this running, even though it takes a little bit more time. You can double the speed of the video, and I just wanna see the messages on the bottom left hand corner. Creating project created by Visual Studio, and actually measure the time which it takes on this computer to create such a project. I'm not gonna cut the corners this time. Okay, package manager console error list, Azure app service, adding jQuery, adding Microsoft ASP.NET web pages, adding modernizer, that's interesting, adding jQuery validation. So this is what happens under the hood, behind the scene. Okay, and here I have the name of the application. The name of the server I don't have, but I have it in the screenshots. If I need them, I always can take it. Okay, so voila, the application actually has been created. We'll take a look in the Windows Azure to see the changes. Adding application insight to project, adding package Microsoft application insights to project. Here we go, Azure App Service activity. So I believe this is the Azure Software Development Kit, and the plugins which I have, they will allow me to create this resource group, server, database, app service, everything directly from my computer, from the comfort of my computer. Application inside project, adding package Microsoft, updating projects, and I am done. I'm ready to go. Quite easy. Created by Visual Studio. Overall started publish profile added to the web project. Publish created by Visual Studio to this web app now. Okay, great. Publish created by Visual Studio, so it even allows me to publish this application immediately. Actually, let me enjoy running this application locally. We already saw that app data is absolutely empty, even though we choose to show all files. The local DB file is still not created. It's gonna be created when I try to register, when I try to use the database. Otherwise, some kind of lazy creation we experience doesn't do more than necessary. It doesn't even create the database file if it's not used, and I keep repeating a lot of magic is going on here. In Visual Studio and Microsoft projects, just pray to God that everything works. Okay, your ASP.NET application. We're not gonna do much. We're just gonna publish this and see what has been created in Azure. My main goal was to see what has been created in Azure. That's all. That's all about. Not now, not now. Connecting. Okay. While this is loading, let's take a look. Azure. Okay, refresh, and I should be able. Created by Visual Studio resource group has been created, and everything should be into this resource group. After that, I'm gonna delete this resource group, and all resources into this resource group should go away. Okay, let me check now all the resources now. Created by Visual Studio. Created by Visual Studio. Default application inside. Created by Visual Studio. It's in the proper resource group. Here it is, the resource group. The database server has been created, and the plan also has been created. Central US, okay, that's great. Western US, PhD Uni. In the Central US actually has been created this one. I have to take a look this. Okay, but the application has been created, the database server was created, inside of the database server the database has been created. Okay, that's it. Recent, let's look at in recent, what do we have now and what differences does it make? Contact manager, we'll get back to contact manager soon. Contact manager, PHP, PhD actually, not PHP. Contact manager, recent, refresh. Recently I have created different things, so created by Visual Studio, I expected to see that, I didn't. Okay, app services, created by Visual Studio, running. There are no virtual machines created, classic or whatever. Virtual machines I don't have. Let me see the SQL databases. So all these resources, all these things have been created from the comfort of my Visual Studio. Created by Visual Studio. Why this is green? Western Europe free trial. Yeah, because it's not used yet, I believe. Online none. Yeah, because it's not being used. That's why it's green, I believe. Okay, it tells me that the server is this one. Okay, so all the resources necessary for my application, for the success of my application, has been created, as I said again, from the comfort of my Visual Studio environment. Login, of course, I will not be able to log in, but let's say if I try to log in, am I gonna see the local database file created? Let me try that. Login, it's painfully slow. It's already 34 minutes elapsed. Okay, I'm gonna say admin example.com, password as usual. I will try to log in. I'm not gonna remember this password. And should give me error. I'm curious to see now if the database has been created. Database file has been created. We saw that When I register, the database file gets created. Okay, let me refresh now. Voila, it has been created. Each time you try to connect to the database, the file actually gets created. Okay, register. I'm curious to see that if I register, of course, admin example, password, again, password 7up, password 7up, register. No, I don't want you to remember this. In any case, it's gonna be removed very soon, so log off. And now it's time for deployment. That's cool. That's very, very cool actually. Okay, so Azure App Service Activities, I can either click here on this link or right mouse click on the created by Visual Studio and say publish. If your Visual Studio crashes when you choose publish, you first have to go to clean. There is another solution. I mentioned this in another tutorial. Going to the properties, you can find the solution in Stack Overflow, but what I use each time before publishing, I'm just cleaning the project, and that solves the problem with crashing and restarting the Visual Studio while you try to publish. Okay, so I'm choosing publish now. All the data should be preset for me as I expected. Great. Created by Visual Studio server, created by Visual Studio 443, security socket layer is used. Created by Visual Studio, the username is created by Visual Studio password, and here we go, the URL. It's not easy, but you can validate the connection. Is not easy to remember this URL, but you don't have to, because this is just temporary. If you're planning to use such URL, you'll choose more carefully the name of your application, settings, application DB context default connection, remote connection string. There is no remote connection string, but I can bring it. If I choose this one, as you can see, the remote connection string will be already set for me, which is just great. I'm gonna take some screenshots here. See, it's a very convenient way. You don't even have to go to the Azure and copy the connection string or whatsoever. It's done for us automatically, which is just great. If you wonder what is this is my local database server 2014 connection. Let me copy this as well. And since the video it's already very long, I'm gonna show where can you get all this information when you go to Azure. Okay, determining changes. Of course, there are a lot of changes. Let's go to Azure while we are waiting. So let's say you're asking yourself how actually to connect to your app service. The answer is very simple. You just have to download your credentials. And where is that? Created by Visual Studio. I'm gonna click here, and when you get to the page, you choose Get Published Settings. I was planning to create a second tutorial which shows exactly that. Let's say I don't want to deploy initially to the Azure, and after that I changed my mind. So in other words, when you created your application, you didn't use Visual Studio to create your resource group, your application, your server. You didn't know in advance where you're gonna host this application. After that, you can correct this error if it is an error. You just get published settings created by Visual Studio. You can open this, let's say Notepad++, for example, and you can see all the settings including your password. Here we go. Here it is, the password. Here it is, connection username. Here it is, the server where you have to connect. Here it is, the URL of your application. So all this information which we saw on the first page can be get this way. You go to Azure, you get publish information, and that's it. What about the database? Connection string can be get from here, can be found here. Click on the database, you'll get to the server, and after that you'll see the connection strings. Show database connection string, server name, show database connection string, strings actually. And if this is ASP.NET MVC application, you get the connection string from here. Very convenient way is to click here and to get the connection string automatically. Okay, so settings, preview, publish. We'll wait and we'll get even redirected to the URL after the deployment process is finished. Azure App Services, a service activity. Let's look at here. In another tutorial, I'm showing how to connect to the Azure service through the Server Explorer and see the database through the SQL Server Object Explorer and all this kind of stuff. Start the ACL, we'll see if everything works. Of course, we cannot expect to have the same user as we do on the local database, I mean adminexample.com, which I just created, but of course this is something which I didn't expect anyway. I'm not gonna cut short this video. In any case, I wasted quite a lot of time. Okay, so let's see, it's already 45 minutes, very long, but I like to learn from mistakes, from failures. So okay, so look at that. My application, my default application already has been deployed. Try to log in. I don't expect to be successful login because I haven't registered. Admin example.com on the local database. I was using password 7up. Login. No. But the database, as you can see, works, because otherwise you will get warnings and errors. You can register admin. Let's keep it simple. I'll use the same password 7, register. Who knows, maybe Microsoft again is gonna change the interface in the Visual Studio. Okay, log off. This is the proof that everything works. From the Visual Studio, you can go to the Server Explorer, Azure, one subscription. Come on. Here we go. App services. Let's see how many do we have. Right now we have one more created by Visual Studio. From here we can see the files. We can see web config. It's very convenient way to work with Visual Studio and Microsoft products. It's really very easy. Connection string, as you can see. Okay. Server Explorer. We can take a look now. The SQL databases. I have 3 databases. I just created the third in front of you. Refreshing the databases. When I right mouse click and choose to explore it, created by Visual Studio, I can say open in SQL Server Object Explorer. It's gonna ask me to add firewall exception. This is on the remote server, so my IP address will be accepted when I try to connect. Add firewall rule, and I will be able to see the tables. Password, and the password should be simple. Microsoft SQL Server authentication. Wow, cannot connect database window net. Cannot open server created request by the request by login client is not allowed to access the server. Okay. It's already allowed. See the strange things in Microsoft. It gave me error, but it's gonna show me the database, I believe. Here we go. Tables. That's really fun. Just default ASP.NET MVC application gets deployed within half an hour or even less. Table, system tables. I don't see the tables though. Refresh. This error meant something finally. Databases. Come on, show me the databases. Voila. The databases. Again, cannot open server request by the login client with IP address. Okay, I'm not gonna investigate that. Probably if I restart the Visual Studio everything is gonna work. This is not the main topic. The main topic was just to record how to create the app services, database server, resource group directly from Visual Studio. And of course I'm going to remove all that from my Windows Azure. I don't need it at all. Now I'm gonna close the solution. I don't need any of those. I'm gonna even remove SQL Server. I'm gonna even remove the application very soon. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm curious to see if I say delete this resource, delete this, is going to remove the database server and everything else. Come on, what happened now? Delete. Created by Visual Studio. Okay. delete this. Deleting the resource, I suppose it should remove the database server, the database, and the application service. It doesn't happen instantaneously. I should come in few minutes probably and check again. I'm curious to see if the database also has been removed. Immediately NoSQL database to create. Don't tell me that you have removed all the databases. I'll be very disappointed. Western Europe free trial. The server doesn't exist anymore though, but the database still exists. App services. Okay, so created by resource group, created by Visual Studio. Shouldn't be there anymore. It's still there, but it's not gonna allow me to delete it. SQL databases, I'm gonna remove this database. If it's not removed already, it has been removed successfully. I don't use virtual machine. App services, and I'm gonna look all resources and remove created by Visual Studio and other things. Contact created by Visual Studio. Let me see if I can pin this to the dashboard, but delete resource group created by Visual Studio. That has been done. Application insights. I don't need this application insights anymore. Anyway. Let's refresh settings time, delete. Alerts available, created by Visual Studio. I'm gonna delete this application insights. It's gonna show me 2 minutes, whatever. It shows me statistics and other interesting things. I'm gonna delete it. Delete application insights resource. Deleting this resource is permanent. I sure want to delete it. Created by Visual Studio. Yes, I want to delete this. Contact Manager. Created by Visual Studio. Default application insights. I hope I didn't delete something which I need. Let me refresh here. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this VS created web app as well, which I used in the beginning of this tutorial, in this video actually. Okay, delete. And that's it. Actually, we clean it up behind ourselves. Contact Manager, that's fine. We'll continue with this application later. In any case, we saw how everything gets created only using Visual Studio. Thank you for watching that, and probably it's gonna be useful for me. Maybe could be useful for somebody else. Thank you again.